Yesterday was a very bright day in the chess history of Pakistan. You know, chess Olympiad is happening right now, and yesterday was second round, and where four of Pakistani players participated in round two, and out of four games, they won three games, and against Qatar. Yesterday, uh, they faced a merely strong team of Qatar, where uh, three of our players from Pakistan won their matches, and one we have lost one match. Let's straight go to their games, what they played. And first game was actually, let's start from table four. At the table four, we have IQBAL MUDASIR against Turki AL-KUWARI. Turki AL-KUWARI, where IQBAL played with black pieces and Turkey played with white pieces. Turkey started with 1e4 and IQBAL replied with c5, playing Sicilian defense. And you know how to play Sicilian defense. There are many variations like Najdorf variation, Khan variation, and we have some also other uh, transpositions or some sidelines or some deviations. Here, white played knight to f3, going for open Sicilian. Mudassir played knight to c6, old Sicilian variation. And now, uh, white played bishop to b5. Actually, when you have knight on c6 on move 2 and we play bishop to b5, this is actually Rosalimo attack, or its complete name is actually Nazmadino Rosalimo attack. We can shortly say it's a Rosalimo attack, and here white replied with black replied with g6, trying to fianchetto his bishop, and now white played castling, and here black played bishop to g7, just castling his bishop. Sorry, fianchetto his bishop, and now white played c6, very principal move. Now, actually, this is complete theory at the moment, and here white goes, sorry, black replied with e5. White played d4, directly challenging his center, and where black took with e pawn. Instead, this was more principal if he had taken it with c pawn, but it worked for his favor. I don't know why, but this is not principal move. Principal move is taking with c pawn, but because you don't want to lose your central pawn, so it was a bit of inaccuracy, but it worked. And white take back with his c pawn, and now you can see he has two central pawns and black has one central pawn. So in Sicilian defense, this is actually common to exchange c pawn with a central d pawn, but here this is opposite. Now black continued with knight takes d4, and white continued knight takes d4, bishop takes d4. Again, taking with pawn was much better approach, but here this is again an accuracy by taking with bishop from here to here. But again, this worked uh, for black. Now, white played knight to c3. Black played knight to e6, sorry, e7, developing his knight. White goes bishop to g5, and black challenges his bishop by playing h6. Bishop to h4 was played, and now black castles. And here, white continued queen to d2. Black again pushes his pawn and trying to kick away his bishop. g5, bishop to g3, d5 was played by MUDASIR IQBAL. So one idea was to take this pawn, but he pushed this pawn. So idea is, if he takes, and I will take, and now this pawn is hanging. So here, instead of taking, Mudassir goes a6. It was the best move. And here, white continues bishop to d3. And here, once again, white plays, black plays d takes e4, attacking his bishop with undefended pawn. So bishop takes pawn. Now he tries, black goes f5, great move, again pushing his bishop away. Now white goes bishop c2, and here he further pushes his pawn and solidifies his pawn chain here, because this queen is very dangerous when placed in here. Here white goes bishop to b3, giving a check. Instead of moving his bishop away, he gives check first. You can say it's intermediate. King to g7 was played, and now bishop to h2 was played. Knight f5 was played by black, and now this was very losing blunder by white. He played knight to e2, and here brilliant move, excellent move was played by MUDASIR. He played bishop to f2, bishop takes f2. He checks his bishop, and now winning his queen. And here white resigned, and our player MUDASIR IQBAL on table 4 won the game. And now let's go to the game number 2, that was played between MOMIN FAYZAN versus MOHAMMED AL-KUWARI. This game was played between MOMIN FAYZAN and MOHAMMED AL-KUWARI, a player from Qatar. Here, MOMIN started with 1e4. Black replied with e5, knight f3, knight c6. So here there are two main options to go. One is for going for Italian, and second is going for Royal Rupees, and third is going for Scotch game, and some other options are here, but he goes bishop b5, going for Royal Rupees. Very solid opening. a6, kicking his bishop away, and now knight f6 was played. Here there are two main options. One is castling and second is d3. Here white goes for castling. Now this pawn could be taken. Here black goes bishop to e7. Actually, instead of going for some open variations, he goes for closed variation of Roy Lopez. And here white continued rook to e1, very principled move. And here black replied with d6, again a principled move. c3 was played, castling by black was played. Now h3 was played, h6 was played by black, d4 was played, and here he tries to resolve his center, and here black replied with, he takes his pawn on d4, takes back with d4, and now he challenges his bishop once again, and he goes bishop to b3. And here black replied with rook to e8, and you can say bar is slightly going up, and now this is 1.0 for white. This is very good for us. Now knight to d2 was played, bishop f8 was played, a3, knight to a5 was played. He is trying to exchange his knight with bishop, but white declined and plays bishop to c2. Bishop to e6 was played, b3 was played, c5 was played, d5 was played. Now this pawn chain is going very dangerous. Now bishop to d7, and here bishop to b2 was played, knight to b7, knight to f1 was played, very principled move for Roy Lopez, b4 and a4, rook to c8 was played, knight to d2 was played, bishop to e7 was played, bishop d3, a5, knight to g3, knight to h7, knight to c4 was played, bishop h4 was played, rook to e3 was played, and instead of taking here, he tried to double his pawn, but once rook is lifted up, he actually takes back his rook. So bishop takes f6, knight takes f6, rook a2 was played, rook e7 was played, f4, queen to c7 was played, queen f3 was played. Now black doubles his rook on e5, white also doubles his rook on e5, king h8 was played, bishop c2 was played, king g8 was played, and finally he goes e5. So instead of taking, he retreats his bishop. E takes d6, actually forking queen and rook. So he has either to give up one of his pieces. One option is to take with knight. So if he takes with knight now, rook takes, rook take back, and rook takes wins the rook. So he goes rook takes e3, d takes c7, rook takes f3, and now finally, if he takes, he can takes back with pawn and threatens c8 is equal to queen. So finally, second game was won by MOMIN FAYZAN on table number 2. Sorry, table number 3. Let's go to third game that was played between AMIR KARIM versus MOHAMMED FIRDAUS ERFAN. So table number 2, AMIR KARIM started with black pieces, FIRDAUS started with white pieces, and he played 1 d4. He replied with f6, nothing committing much. C4 was played and e6 was played. Knight to c3 was played. Bishop e4 was played, actually going for Nimzo Indian defense. So he goes for normal line e3, and c5 was played. Bishop to d3 was played. Knight to c6, knight to e2, castling, and now finally d5 was played. C takes d5, e takes d5, a3 was played, and c4 was played. And he retreats his bishop to c2, bishop a5, and f3 was played. Bishop to b6 was played. Actually, bishop here is very strong bishop. e3, c takes b3, and bishop takes. Bishop f5 was played, knight g3, and now he comes bishop g6, f4, threatening f5. So here one option was, actually the one and only move was to go h6, just to avoid f5. f5 actually loses the piece, but he goes bishop c7. Actually this is a mistake. So now he goes queen to f3, and knight to e7 was played. Bishop b2, bishop d3, and rook d1, and now bishop a6 was played. And we can see these two bishops are monstrous. So here white goes knight h5, knight takes h5, queen takes h5, and bishop c4. Bishop takes and pawn takes. Queen f3 was played. Actually going for this pawn, attacking this pawn. Bishop a5 was played. So instead of taking this pawn, he goes e4. Queen to b6, now defending this pawn. Queen f2 was played. Rook d8. rook c1, rook c8, knight a4, and queen to b3. Queen c2 was played, actually trying to exchange these queens, but Amir refuses and goes queen to e3 check, winning this pawn. King h1, the only move, or he could defend with queen. Queen takes f4, actually wins a pawn. And now we can see we have 5 versus 6 pawn majority. Rook f1, queen d2 now, because now he is a pawn up. Now he says I want to exchange my queens, so he first goes d5, knight g6, and now finally exchanges his queens, and rook c2 was played. Bishop f4, bishop d4, and b6, because now both pawns are defending each other, and g3 was played. Bishop e5, and he don't want to exchange his bishops and goes bishop e3, bishop d6, and knight c3, knight e5, knight b5, and again he now again says I want to exchange my bishops and want to go to endgame, and he now finally takes bishop, and he takes back with rook. Taking with pawn was also an option, but here he goes rook takes, knight takes a7, winning this pawn. But this is not winning this pawn, because rook a7 wins this pawn. Rook, he challenges his knight, and he challenges his knight, so he goes f6, defending his knight. It says, and he took with rook. F takes e5, takes back the rook, and now knight c6 was played. Maybe he was going for some tricks here, but he failed. White failed, and now finally he goes c3, knight takes e5, rook takes a3, knight d3, rook c4, and e5, rook d3, knight f4, and first he gives check, and king g2, and now he forks knight and king, and tries to exchange this uh, rooks, but he declined, because rook takes, pawn takes, and now this is actually queen, but he did not go for that plan, but he goes king h3, sacrificing his rook, and now he tries to queen his pawn, but he goes rook to d2, and now he could see that this could no more be a queen, so he resigned the game, and we won the third game. So finally, fourth game. We all had expectations from table number 1, where MAFAAZ KHALID was playing with white pieces against HUSEIN NEZAD of Qatar, where MAFAAZ started with 1d4 and he replied with d5, c4 and e6, knight c3, knight f6, knight f3 and bishop to e7. Going for queen's gambit declined, 3 knights variation, and he says now I want to go for modern variation of queen's gambit declined and goes bishop to g5, h6 and bishop h4, pawn takes c4 and now he goes e3, a6 and white takes back his pawn, b5 was played and bishop to d3. And here bishop to b7 was played and white castles, knight d7, rook to c1 and black castles and white goes queen to e2, c5 and now finally bishop takes f6, bishop takes back and bishop goes to e4, bishop takes, knight takes and finally c4. Now we can see this is a very strong pawn chain that could become very dangerous because there is 2 versus 3 pawn majority on queen side and 5 versus 4 pawn majority on king side. So here white continues, rook to d1, black goes queen to b6 and g4 was played, bishop to e7 and now knight to g3, rook d8, e4 and knight to f8 and e5, rook a7, queen e3, rook d7, doubling this rook, h4, f6 and knight h5, f takes e5. So this is actually move where actual game started and his opponent HUSEIN NEZAD started pushing back MAFAAZ KHALID from Pakistan and he goes f takes e5, queen takes e5, bishop d6, threatening his queen and queen goes e2, queen c6 and now finally he goes d5, a losing blunder. He takes back with pawn and knight d4, challenging his queen, queen goes to b6, now knight goes f5, bishop c5. You can see this is actually a strong battery. Rook c3, queen e6. He says, white, I have a better pawn structure. I have 4 pawns on queen side. We have 3 pawns on king side versus 2 pawns and 4 pawns versus 2 pawns. Now I am a pawn up, better pawn structure. Now I want to go for an end game. I want to exchange my queens and MAFAAZ FIDE declines the queen exchange of queen and goes queen to f1. Now finally he goes d4, challenging the rook. Rook goes f3. and d3 was played. This is actually very strong pawn structure for 2 versus 4 pawns on the queen side, where there is no piece blocking these pawns. And he goes g5, pawn takes, and pawn takes back. Now again black goes queen to e2, and he says, I want to exchange my queen because now I have a better pawn structure on queen side and I want to go for an endgame. And white says you can exchange the queens, but you have to take on this because I don't want to take back with pawn and to, to threaten the rook and forking the rook. So he goes king to g2, and now queen takes and king takes. Rook f7, king g2, knight g6, and now he sacrifices his knight and says you can take back with the rook and I will take back with the knight. He takes back. So instead of taking back rook with knight, he wants to create some perpetual and goes knight to h6, king h7, and rook h1. Now he goes knight h4, sacrifices his knight, because if he had played some other move, for example this one, so there would be a perpetual like this, check, check, here, 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 and this would be a draw. So white says no, sorry, black says I know your plan. You want to create a perpetual on the losing position. So I want to sacrifice my knight, and goes knight h5, h4, and rook takes, the pawn, king h3, and rook d4, rook f7 check, king g6, attacking the rook. He says actually this rook is defended by the knight and goes f4, attacking the rook. Rook h5, rook takes back, and knight g4. And finally he goes d2, knight e5, and rook takes, and now rook takes, and white goes d1, and now he has a new queen, rook f5, king h6, knight g4, king h7, escaping on a safer square. Now rook takes c6, c5, rook takes bishop, queen h1, knight h2, and queen e4, rook g5, king f8, knight g4, and now he goes b4. Rook g8 was played. He says you can take my rook and I want to force your only queen, but he says no, I don't want to be forked. He goes queen to f7, rook c8, queen d3, king h4, queen d4, king g5, and c4, c3, and pawn takes, and pawn takes back, knight h6, check, and king e4. He gives check and king d7. He again says, I want to sacrifice my rook and want to fork your pieces. But black says, no, I don't want to be forked, and goes king d8, and he now goes rook to e2. Now finally, black says, I want to give you my queen, but want to take the rook with the pawn and create new queen here. And here, MAFAAZ resigns the game. So we lost only game in the round, but fortunately we have won out. We have won 3 games from 3 boards. So this is actually an achievement for Pakistan, a bright day for Pakistan. So we can say we have some hope in that tournament. So let's see what happens next.